When you want to get with your significant other and you just want to just get into that mood, that groove, it starts off and you can like dance together on some R&B music.
The life of a personal assistant to a celebrity often seems glamorous from the outside. The glitz, the exclusive parties, the access to a world most can only dream of. It's a temptation that draws many into its fold. But for Marcus, who spent a year working as Sean Diddy Combs' personal assistant, the reality was far from what he expected. Beneath the sheen of fame and fortune, he encountered a darker, more haunting reality, one that would stay with him long after his time in Diddy's orbit ended. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. Marcus had always been ambitious, a young man from Brooklyn with dreams bigger than the borough. Landing the job as Diddy's personal assistant seemed like the break he had been waiting for. Diddy was a mogul, a force in music, fashion, and business, and working alongside him promised an invaluable education in the art of success. Marcus imagined networking opportunities, rubbing shoulders with A-listers, and being privy to the secrets of the music industry. What he hadn't anticipated was the cost of admission into that world. From the moment he stepped into Diddy's inner circle, Marcus was thrust into an unrelenting whirlwind of chaos. Diddy's lifestyle was nothing short of frenetic. Early morning meetings, late-night studio sessions, impromptu overseas trips, it was a pace few could keep up with. Marcus quickly learned that being a personal assistant didn't just mean fetching coffee or organizing schedules. It meant becoming an extension of Diddy himself, fulfilling every demand, no matter how unreasonable, at a moment's notice. Panicked, Marcus scrambled to locate the wine. His search led him to a questionable dealer who demanded an exorbitant fee for what might not even be the real thing. When Marcus returned hours later, weary and stressed, Diddy didn't even glance at the bottle. Instead, he dismissed Marcus with a wave, as if the ordeal had never happened. It was then that Marcus realized the job wasn't about efficiency or problem solving. It was a test of loyalty, a game where the rules constantly shifted. The more time Marcus spent with Diddy, the more unsettling his experiences became. There were nights when he would be summoned to Diddy's penthouse in the dead of night, only to find the mogul sitting alone in silence, surrounded by the remnants of a party long since ended. On one such occasion, Diddy asked Marcus to sit with him. At first, it seemed like an olive branch, an opportunity to connect with his enigmatic employer. But as the hours dragged on, Diddy began to ramble about his fears, his regrets, and his paranoia. He spoke of betrayal, of people in his life he could no longer trust. His words were fragmented, almost incoherent, and his eyes held a haunted look that sent a chill down Marcus's spine. It wasn't just Diddy's mood swings that unnerved Marcus. It was the sheer unpredictability of his behavior. One moment he would be generous to a fault, lavishing gifts on his team and throwing extravagant celebrations. The next, he would erupt in anger over the smallest perceived slight. Marcus once witnessed him fire a longtime employee over an error in a dinner reservation. The man pleaded for his job, tears streaming down his face, but Diddy remained unmoved. Marcus began to realize that loyalty was a one-way street in Diddy's world. Everyone was disposable. As the months went by, Marcus found himself increasingly isolated. The demands of the job left little time for friends or family, and even when he managed to steal a few moments for himself, he couldn't escape the nagging feeling of unease that had taken root in his mind. The luxurious settings, the high-profile encounters, they all began to feel like a facade, masking something darker. The turning point came during an international trip to Paris. Diddy was in the city for a fashion show, and Marcus was tasked with ensuring that everything ran smoothly. The trip started off well enough. But on the second night, Marcus was awoken by an urgent call from Diddy's security team. They informed him that Diddy had disappeared from the hotel and was not answering his phone. Panic set in as Marcus and the team combed the city in search of their boss. Hours later, they found him in a private club, surrounded by strangers who seemed more predatory than friendly. Diddy was visibly intoxicated, his usually sharp demeanor replaced by a vulnerability Marcus had never seen before. As Marcus helped him back to the hotel, Diddy muttered cryptic phrases about people watching him, about enemies closing in. That night, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was witnessing a man unraveling under the weight of his own empire. By the time Marcus left the job, he was a shadow of the person he had been when he started. The sleepless nights, the constant stress, and the psychological toll of dealing with Diddy's erratic behavior had left him emotionally drained. Even after leaving, the memories lingered, vivid and haunting. Marcus often found himself replaying moments in his mind. The intensity of Diddy's gaze, the inexplicable requests, the fleeting glimpses of vulnerability that hinted at the turmoil beneath the surface. What haunted Marcus most wasn't the chaos or the demands. It was the realization that success, at least in Diddy's world, came at a cost few could afford. Behind the facade of fame and fortune was a man who seemed trapped by his own success, surrounded by people who either feared him, used him, or both. Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that, in his own small way, he had been complicit in enabling that world. Looking back, Marcus struggled to reconcile the experience. On one hand, he had gained insights and stories few could match. On the other, he had glimpsed the darker side of celebrity, a world where the line between ambition and obsession blurred, and where loyalty was often rewarded with betrayal. Though he had escaped, the lessons he learned and the scars he carried would remain with him forever. Leaving his role as Diddy's personal assistant felt like a fresh start for Marcus, yet he couldn't fully escape the psychological grip the experience had on him. The job had been transformative in ways that were not entirely positive. The scars, both emotional and mental, remained long after the official resignation was handed in. He often found himself lost in thought, replaying memories he desperately wished he could forget. The frenetic pace, the outlandish requests, and the pervasive sense of paranoia that radiated from Diddy had taken a toll on Marcus, shaping his life in unexpected ways. Marcus tried to move forward, throwing himself into a quieter life. He took up a job at a marketing agency, working with small brands and startups. The environment was a stark contrast to the chaos he had grown accustomed to, and for the first time in years, he felt a semblance of normalcy. Yet even in this quieter setting, Diddy's shadow loomed large. Small things would trigger memories, hearing one of Diddy's tracks on the radio, a passing mention of his name on the news, or even the sight of someone wearing Sean John clothing. It wasn't just the memories that haunted Marcus. It was the unsettling realization that he had changed in ways he couldn't quite articulate. The constant vigilance and hyper-awareness that the job had demanded had rewired his brain. He found himself instinctively scanning rooms for exits, sizing up people as though they might become threats. It was as if Diddy's paranoia had rubbed off on him, embedding itself into his psyche. One night, Marcus found himself unable to sleep. He wandered into his living room and sat on the couch, scrolling aimlessly through his phone. A news alert popped up. Diddy had hosted yet another extravagant party, one that had made headlines for its sheer decadence. Marcus stared at the article, the accompanying photos showing the mogul surrounded by celebrities flashing his signature grin. To the world, it was just another night of opulence and charm. But to Marcus, those images told a different story. He recognized the forced smile, the way Diddy's eyes seemed to scan the crowd even as he laughed. It was the look of a man who could never truly let his guard down. This realization led Marcus to dig deeper. He began to research Diddy's life, reading interviews and watching documentaries. What struck him most was the disconnect between the man he had worked for and the public persona Diddy projected. The mogul spoke often of perseverance, of building an empire from the ground up, of staying true to his vision. But Marcus had seen the cracks in that facade, the moments of doubt, the simmering rage, the loneliness that seemed to pervade even his most triumphant moments. As Marcus delved deeper, he began to question the nature of success itself. Diddy was undeniably a titan in the entertainment industry, a man who had achieved more than most could dream of. But at what cost? Marcus thought about the people who surrounded Diddy, the entourage, the employees, the hangers-on. How many of them were there out of genuine loyalty, and how many were simply drawn to the power and money? And what about Diddy himself? Was he aware of the transactional nature of those relationships, or did he choose to ignore it? These questions consumed Marcus, prompting him to reflect on his own ambitions. Before taking the job with Diddy, he had dreamed of climbing the corporate ladder, of making a name for himself in the competitive world of business. But now, those dreams felt hollow. He couldn't shake the feeling that chasing success, at least in the way Diddy had, was a trap, a cycle of endless striving where the rewards never seemed to outweigh the sacrifices. The lingering effects of Marcus's time with Diddy weren't limited to his professional life. They seeped into his personal relationships as well. Friends and family often commented on how distant he had become, how he seemed distracted even when he was physically present. Marcus didn't know how to explain it to them. How could he articulate the weight of what he had experienced, the moral compromises he had witnessed, without sounding dramatic or ungrateful? One person who did seem to understand was his girlfriend Lila. She had been with Marcus before he took the job with Diddy, and she had seen the changes in him firsthand. Lila was patient, but even her patience had its limits. One evening, after Marcus had once again canceled plans at the last minute, she confronted him. "Marcus, I get that your job was tough, but you're not there anymore," she said, her voice tinged with frustration. "You can't keep letting it control you." Her words hit home, but they also filled Marcus with a sense of helplessness. He wanted to move on, to leave the past behind, but it felt like an impossible task. The experience had been so all-encompassing, so consuming, that it had become a part of him. How do you let go of something that has reshaped the very fabric of who you are? Desperate for clarity, Marcus decided to seek professional help. He found a therapist who specialized in trauma and began attending weekly sessions. At first, he was hesitant to open up, unsure of how to frame his experiences in a way that would make sense. But as the sessions progressed, Marcus began to unravel the complex web of emotions he had been carrying. He talked about the fear, the guilt, and the overwhelming sense of inadequacy he had felt during his time with Diddy. One breakthrough came when the therapist asked Marcus to describe a moment when he felt truly powerless. Without hesitation, Marcus recounted the night in Paris, when he had found Diddy in that club surrounded by strangers. The memory was vivid, the details etched into his mind. As he spoke, he realized that it wasn't just the fear for Diddy's safety that had haunted him. It was the helplessness of knowing that no matter what he did, he could never truly protect his boss from himself. The therapy sessions were a turning point for Marcus. Slowly but surely, he began to reclaim his sense of self. He started setting boundaries in his new job, making time for hobbies he had neglected, and reconnecting with old friends. It wasn't an overnight transformation, but it was progress. As Marcus rebuilt his life, he couldn't help but think about Diddy. What had become of him? Was he still caught in the same cycle, or had he found a way to break free? Marcus knew he would never have the answers to those questions, but he hoped, for Diddy's sake, that things had changed. One day, while scrolling through social media, Marcus came across a video of Diddy giving a motivational speech. In it, the mogul talked about the importance of resilience, of never giving up on your dreams. The crowd cheered, hanging on his every word. Marcus watched in silence, a mix of emotions swirling within him. He admired Diddy's ability to inspire others, but he also felt a pang of sadness. The man on stage was a master performer, but Marcus knew the cost of that performance all too well. Years later, Marcus would occasionally share stories from his time with Diddy, though he always chose his words carefully. The stories were sanitized, stripped of the darker details, and framed as humorous anecdotes. People loved hearing about the celebrity encounters and the high-stakes drama, but Marcus never delved into the deeper truths. Those were his alone to bear, a part of his past that he preferred to keep hidden. Looking back, Marcus understood that his time with Diddy had been both a blessing and a curse. It had given him a front-row seat to the world of fame and power, but it had also shown him its darker underbelly. The experience had shaped him in ways he couldn't have anticipated, leaving him with lessons that were as painful as they were valuable. Perhaps the most important lesson was this: success, no matter how dazzling it may appear, is never as simple as it seems. Behind every triumph lies a story of struggle, sacrifice, and sometimes even despair. And while the world may celebrate the victories, it is the scars left behind that tell the real story. For Marcus, those scars were a reminder of where he had been and how far he had come, a haunting but ultimately a testament to his resilience. After leaving Diddy's employment, Marcus wrestled with the invisible weight of his experiences. Despite his efforts to move forward, the complexities of what he had endured became a quiet undercurrent in his life, influencing his decisions and reshaping his sense of self. It wasn't just the lifestyle he had left behind. It was the constant exposure to a world driven by egos, insecurities, and unrelenting pressure that had profoundly altered him. Marcus tried to immerse himself in routine, finding solace in the mundane. He took long walks through his neighborhood, savoring the simplicity of unhurried moments. He started reading again, losing himself in novels that transported him to faraway lands and times. But no matter how much he tried to ground himself, there were nights when he woke in a cold sweat, his mind replaying fragments of those tense, sleepless days at Diddy's side. In one particularly vivid dream, Marcus found himself back in the Beverly Hills mansion. The house was empty, the usual buzz of activity replaced by an eerie silence. He wandered through the opulent rooms, the chandeliers casting long shadows on the marble floors. As he moved, he could hear Diddy's voice echoing faintly, calling his name. But when he followed the sound, he found only empty space. The dream always ended the same way, with Marcus standing in a cavernous room, alone and disoriented. These dreams began to take a toll on his mental health. Marcus turned to journaling, hoping that putting his thoughts on paper might help him make sense of them. His entries were raw and unfiltered, filled with questions he couldn't answer. Why did I stay so long? What was I trying to prove? Writing became a form of therapy, a way to confront the emotions he had suppressed for so long. One day, while flipping through his journal, Marcus came across an entry that struck him. It was a memory he had almost forgotten, buried beneath the more dramatic moments of his time with Diddy. It had been a quiet afternoon, a rarity in that world. Diddy had called Marcus into his office not to bark orders, but to talk. He had been reflective that day, speaking candidly about his childhood, his struggles, and the pain that had driven him to succeed. It was one of the few times Marcus had seen the man behind the mogul, a glimpse of vulnerability that left a lasting impression. That moment had humanized Diddy for Marcus, reminding him that even the most powerful figures are shaped by their pasts. Yet it also made Marcus realize how much of Diddy's success was built on a foundation of fear of failure, of irrelevance, of being forgotten. It was a fear Marcus could empathize with, though he now understood how destructive it could be. As the years passed, Marcus began to share his experiences with a small circle of trusted friends. At first, it was difficult to put his thoughts into words. How do you explain the strange, almost surreal nature of working for someone like Diddy? But as he opened up, he found that people were genuinely curious, not just about the glitz and drama, but about the deeper lessons he had learned. One evening during a dinner party, Marcus told a story about a time he had been tasked with organizing a last-minute event for Diddy. The request had come with impossible demands, a guest list of hundreds, a venue that didn't yet exist, and a theme that changed 3 times in the span of an hour. As he recounted the chaos, his friends laughed, marveling at the absurdity of it all. But Marcus ended the story on a somber note, reflecting on how that night had epitomized the relentless nature of the job. No matter how much he accomplished, it was never enough. The act of sharing his experiences was cathartic, but it also made Marcus realize how much he had learned about resilience and adaptability. Few people could endure what he had gone through and come out the other side intact. That realization gave him a sense of pride, a reminder that he was stronger than he often gave himself credit for. Inspired by the response to his stories, Marcus began to toy with the idea of writing a memoir. He wasn't interested in a tell-all exposé. He had no desire to tarnish Diddy's image or exploit their time together. Instead, he wanted to explore the psychological and emotional toll of working in such a high-stakes environment. He wanted to write about ambition, power, and the ways they shape and distort human relationships. The writing process was slow and challenging. Marcus found himself revisiting memories he had tried to forget, confronting emotions he hadn't fully processed. There were days when he had to step away from his laptop, overwhelmed by the intensity of it all. But there were also moments of clarity, when the words flowed effortlessly, and he felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in years. As he wrote, Marcus began to see his time with Diddy in a new light. It wasn't just a chapter of his life, it was a crucible that had tested and transformed him. The lessons he had learned, the importance of boundaries, the dangers of unchecked ambition, the value of authenticity, became the backbone of his narrative. He hoped that by sharing his story, he could help others navigate their own journeys, offering insights that might spare them some of the pain he had endured. When the manuscript was finished, Marcus faced the daunting task of finding a publisher. He sent query letters to dozens of agents, bracing himself for rejection. But to his surprise, several expressed interest. His unique perspective and insider knowledge made the book an intriguing prospect, and within months, Marcus had a deal. The book, titled Behind the Curtain: Lessons from the Shadows of Fame, was released to critical acclaim. Readers praised its honesty, its depth, and its refusal to sensationalize. Marcus was invited to speak at events and on podcasts, sharing his story with audiences eager to learn about the realities of life behind the scenes. The success of the book marked a turning point for Marcus. For the first time, he felt a sense of closure, as though he had finally made peace with his past. He used his platform to advocate for mental health, sharing his own journey in the hopes of breaking the stigma surrounding therapy and self-care. He also began mentoring young professionals, offering guidance to those entering high-pressure industries. Despite his newfound sense of purpose, Marcus never forgot the lessons he had learned from Diddy. He understood now that ambition, while powerful, could also be a double-edged sword. It had the potential to drive people to greatness, but it could also consume them if left unchecked. For Marcus, the key was finding balance, pursuing his goals without losing sight of what truly mattered. In a surprising twist, Marcus and Diddy crossed paths years later at an industry event. The encounter was brief but cordial, a chance for both men to acknowledge the impact they had had on each other's lives. Diddy, ever the showman, praised Marcus for his success, joking that he always knew Marcus was destined for great things. Marcus, for his part, thanked Diddy for the opportunities and lessons he had provided. There was no animosity, no lingering tension, just two men who had shared a turbulent chapter of their lives, now standing on opposite sides of it. As Marcus walked away from that encounter, he felt a sense of closure he hadn't realized he needed. He had spent so much time grappling with the ghosts of his past, but now he understood that they no longer had power over him. He had taken the pain, the chaos, and the uncertainty of those years, and turned them into something meaningful. After years of reflection and growth, Marcus found himself standing on the precipice of a life fully reclaimed. What he had endured as Diddy's personal assistant had taught him more than he initially realized, but it also marked the beginning of a journey he had come to embrace rather than resent. As the years went by, Marcus discovered that his story resonated deeply with others, even those who had never set foot in the entertainment industry. The universal themes of ambition, self-worth, and resilience struck chords with audiences from all walks of life. One of Marcus's most profound realizations came during a speaking engagement at a university. He was invited to address a room full of aspiring business and creative arts students, many of whom idolized the kind of success Diddy represented. As Marcus shared his story, he saw a mix of fascination and unease cross their faces. They were captivated by his experiences, but visibly shaken by the realities he described. "You might think fame and fortune are the ultimate goals," Marcus said, his voice steady but firm. "But I'm here to tell you that success without purpose, without balance, can be a gilded cage. Don't lose yourself chasing someone else's definition of greatness." After his talk, a student approached him, her eyes wide with emotion. She told Marcus she had been on the verge of accepting an internship in a high-pressure industry, but his story had made her reconsider what she truly wanted. That moment stayed with Marcus, reminding him of the ripple effect of honesty and vulnerability. In his personal life, Marcus found joy in simplicity. He took up gardening, a hobby that allowed him to cultivate something tangible and watch it grow, a stark contrast to the intangible chaos he had once managed. Each seed he planted felt like a small act of healing, a reminder that life could thrive when nurtured with patience and care. The quiet hours spent tending to his plants became a form of meditation, a way to center himself and focus on the present. Marcus also reconnected with his family in a way he hadn't been able to during his time working for Diddy. Weekend dinners became a cherished tradition, filled with laughter, stories, and the warmth of unconditional love. He realized how much he had missed these moments, how important it was to hold on to the relationships that grounded him. Professionally, Marcus's perspective shifted in profound ways. He no longer viewed success as a linear climb to the top, but as a mosaic of meaningful experiences and connections. He started his own consultancy, helping businesses and individuals navigate the challenges of leadership and personal growth. His approach was unconventional, informed by the lessons he had learned in Diddy's orbit. Leadership isn't about control, Marcus would tell his clients. It's about trust, authenticity, and creating an environment where people feel empowered to thrive. As Marcus reflected on his journey, he understood that his time with Diddy, while harrowing, had been a crucible that forged his character. It had taught him the value of boundaries, the importance of self-awareness, and the necessity of staying true to one's values. Though the memories would always remain, they no longer defined him. Instead, they served as a foundation for a life rebuilt with intention, purpose, and a deep appreciation for the power of resilience. As Marcus's life continued to unfold, he became acutely aware of how his experience with Diddy had transformed not only his outlook, but also his relationship with ambition. He no longer measured success in terms of material wealth or notoriety. Instead, he sought fulfillment in purpose-driven work, authentic connections, and the pursuit of a balanced, meaningful life. This shift in perspective opened doors to opportunities he had never imagined, including partnerships with organizations focused on mental health and professional development. One of these opportunities came when Marcus was invited to collaborate on a series of workshops aimed at young professionals entering high-pressure industries. The workshops focused on building resilience, managing stress, and maintaining a sense of self in environments where burnout and exploitation were rampant. Marcus drew heavily on his own experiences, using stories from his time with Diddy to illustrate the importance of self-care and the dangers of overextending oneself to meet unrealistic demands. In one session, he shared an anecdote about a time he had gone 3 days without proper sleep, juggling a cascade of last-minute requests from Diddy that seemed to multiply every hour. He described the physical and emotional toll it took on him, the growing sense of detachment he felt from his own life. "I didn't even recognize myself in the mirror," he told the attendees. "I was so focused on proving I could handle anything that I forgot I was human." The story resonated deeply with the audience, sparking an honest discussion about boundaries and the societal pressure to always appear strong and capable. Marcus encouraged the participants to prioritize their well-being, reminding them that no job or achievement was worth sacrificing their health or happiness. Beyond his professional endeavors, Marcus found solace in storytelling, not just through his writing but in more intimate, personal settings. He became a fixture at community events, hosting small gatherings where people shared their own journeys of triumph and hardship. These gatherings were a source of inspiration for Marcus, a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the universality of struggle. One evening, during a storytelling circle, an older man recounted his decades working as a personal driver for a wealthy family. As he spoke of the long hours, the unrealistic expectations, and the emotional strain, Marcus felt an instant connection. When it was his turn to speak, Marcus shared how his time with Diddy had mirrored many of the same challenges, despite the vastly different settings. The shared understanding between the two men was profound, bridging generational and cultural gaps. Marcus also began to explore spirituality, seeking answers to the existential questions that had arisen during his time with Diddy. He experimented with meditation and mindfulness, practices that helped him find peace amidst the chaos of his memories. Through these practices, Marcus developed a greater appreciation for the present moment, learning to let go of the past without dismissing its importance. One breakthrough came during a silent retreat he attended in the mountains. Over the course of 3 days, free from distractions and external noise, Marcus reflected deeply on his journey. He realized that the pain he had experienced wasn't something to erase but to integrate. It was a part of him, a source of strength and wisdom that he could carry forward without allowing it to define him. In the years that followed, Marcus became a beacon of hope and wisdom for those struggling with the pressures of ambition and achievement. His story was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that even the most harrowing experiences could be transformed into opportunities for growth and renewal. For Marcus, the journey was ongoing, but he faced it with a newfound sense of clarity and purpose, ready to embrace whatever the future held. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on the challenges he faced as Diddy's personal assistant? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.